I've been thinking about this topic for weeks. What is the tower? Like, actually, we know the structure of the tower and the general purpose of the tower, at least within the context of the Tower of God story, but we don't know why it exists. What is the history about this tower? What does it even look like from the outside? Is it even a physical manifestation at all? Is it a literal tower? Today, I'm hoping to answer this question. I have 3 theories I'm gonna bring up. The first 2, general, broad theories I've seen in the community with some of my thoughts added on. But the third theory is one that I came up with entirely on my own, rereading the story, figuring out what SIU means by all these little hints and plot details. And I think this third theory actually makes a ton of sense. Before we get to that though, this video is sponsored by Tower of God New World. Let's go! Tower of God New World is a new 3D mobile game that revolves around the story, setting, and characters of Tower of God. It follows the story of Tower of God to a T, including extra scenes and events like the new summer event, which details costumes for the characters. I recently got the Hwaryun one, which I'm really happy about. There's a huge focus here on team building and strategy, with focuses on the positions like Wave Controller and Scout, but also elements like Bomb being a light element, and Hansung being a red element, and figuring out which team combinations work best for a given chapter. There's tons of characters. I think there's over 70 characters right now, including SSR and SSR Plus, which you can get every 100 pulls. The SSR Pluses are super insane. There's already Data Jihad and Evankel, which is amazing. But certain R and SR characters can be really good in certain situations too, depending on what elements you need. And like I mentioned, there's a summer festival event going on right now, which includes like a brand new side story about Chibisu and Hots going to the beach and meeting Viol and Hwaryun there. It's the best. So go check out Tower of God New World. The link is down below. Our first theory about what the tower is, aside from just a boring old tower that is kind of sitting out in the middle of nowhere, is that it's a tree, some kind of Yggdrasil-like being that exists as a living creature. Because Shinsu and Divine Water is such a big theme in Tower of God, it makes sense that the sort of life water of the tower is literally within a living being, right? If this was just a big metal structure that didn't really have any purpose or life to it, it actually doesn't make as much sense as, no, the tower has a will, it is a living creature, but it's still like a tree. Its branches representing floors, the flower nations that apparently existed thousands of years ago, before Jihad and before everything, these flower nations being related to nature and the trees. Baked Ryun being somebody who is one of the most attuned Shinsu users in the tower, being so connected to trees and being able to apparently create giant forests, right? I've always loved the stories and the mythology around Yggdrasil, and I feel as though some kind of reveal that the entire time the tower was actually like some kind of wood nature tree being. I don't know, I think it's kind of interesting. The second theory is that everything within the tower is directly because of the axes in TOG, Contaminum and potentially the outside god being likely candidates or culprits. We know these people exist, and we know they're referred to as authors of the universe that SIU has created, sometimes called the Tales user story. But even going further than that, the theory goes, what if the tower itself is literally a story, right? And entering the tower is almost like entering Narnia, right? It's almost like something that doesn't exist, but because there's a purpose to it, people like Jihad want to stay because the life they have there is better than the one outside. But then you have people like Yurik who actually want to leave and go back because the storybook, this setting that's taking place, is limiting. Rachel heard about the tower through a storybook. She calls it a storybook that she read about fairies and adventures. What if the Tower of God story is literally some kind of Narnia-like world, and the tower isn't actually a physical place? It's not a literal tower or even a tree, right? It's basically a parallel world. And that would make Tower of God kind of like an isekai after all. Frick! Jokes aside, I do like this theory. It makes sense because the outside god possibly being the one that's telling this story makes sense because he resurrected Bomb just because he felt like it. He was like, you know what, maybe this story would be interesting if I resurrect this boy. Like, all these weird events, like Enryu just showing up out of nowhere or Bomb being resurrected, maybe it could be explained because the outside god is telling this story, is writing this story. The outside God is SIU, that's what I'm trying to say. So each tower, quote unquote, within the Tales user story is essentially a story within the Tales user story. Because you have the authors, the axes, it makes sense. I don't think this is true. I don't think the tower theory is true either. I just think they're pretty fun to think about. But okay, this is why I wanted to make this video. This is where I spent all of my time thinking about and researching if this could potentially hold any merit. I want to preface by saying I don't think this is necessarily all true, but I think the backing and the foundation of this theory is absolutely true, and so I think what we place onto this foundation has a very high likelihood of being true to some extent. Are y'all ready for this? The crazy theory I'm about to throw at you? I don't know if you're ready for this. Here we go. The tower's upside down. That's it, you can go. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. I know this sounds so weird and out of left field, but bear with me on this. The tower is upside down. What if, when you make it to the 134th floor, and you climb, and you pass that test, and you make it to floor 135, instead of arriving on floor 135, you're greeted by birds chirping. The sun is shining, a twinkling of stars in the distance. The sun is setting and you can see a wide field of trees. When you climb through 134, you instead leave the tower. What if when you enter the tower, instead of starting on floor 1 and climbing for who knows how long, instead you start on the top floor, floor 1, and you climb down? And the entire tower is one giant test to see who's strong enough or worthy enough to leave. Think about it. All the people on the inside are born there and they die there. They're the ones that climb the tower. The irregulars shouldn't even be in the picture right now. The ones that are being tested are the ones inside, and their reward is getting to leave this prison. When you read a storybook and there's a tower mentioned, what do you think of? A prison. The tower is literally a prison where people are kept. It can also be a lookout point or something along those lines. But if you think about a tower where people cannot leave, what do you think of? A prison. What if, when Jihad and the others entered, these anomalies that shouldn't even be within this structure, when they entered and climbed to the top, or the bottom in this case, Jihad didn't want to leave because he had so much fun on this adventure and he wanted to keep everybody in to experience that grand adventure forever. We know that Jihad will do anything to have fun. He'll make any bet, he'll take any offer because he loves this stuff. He loves this stuff. And what if the power, the temptation of being king, it got to his head? To the point where he knew if people could just leave, especially his friends, it would all be done. He wouldn't be any kind of important figure anymore. Everyone on the outside could be strong or special or unique in some way. Inside the tower, he's a king, but outside, he's just a minnow. Instead, he wanted to be king or continue his adventure as the king of a pond instead of just another fish in the ocean. Is there any evidence for this theory at all, or does it just sound really cool? First of all, Hedon. Hedon is constantly called the god of the tower, the true ruler of the tower, and I've always thought it's kind of weird that he exists at the very bottom. What if instead he oversees everything, literally, from the very top? This whole time you've been climbing down and Hedon is in charge of everything from his perch as the true king of the tower on the very top. It must have been a shock when Jihad opened and peeked beyond that door, or discovered that when he goes to that next floor, there's actually no more floors. That's it. It's the outside. The journey is over. We all know it's about the journey, not the destination, and Jihad might have taken that very seriously. The tower's purpose is just to test people to see if they're worthy to leave it. It literally is a prison where people fight each other to the death to leave. But it's existed for so long, and the truth has been so obscured that people don't even remember its purpose. So why does the tower even exist to begin with? Is there a reason? I think there very well could be. We know that axes are a thing, the Axis people like Pentamenim and possibly the outside god. And it's possible that the tower exists as a purgatory. I'm about to hit you with so many religious references, your head's gonna hurt. But what if the tower is a purgatory or even a hell. Purgatory being a place you can escape, probably making more sense, where people who in the past did something wrong are now being perpetually punished. Think of Christian mythology for a second, right? Think about the first men, Adam and Eve, the first human beings created by God. When they sinned, their descendants carried original sin. Within this tower, it doesn't matter if the original people who sinned are gone, their kids are still around and they still carry that punishment. The outside God is literally a god and a story creator, right? What if he was offended at some point and decided to create a tower to perpetually punish these people, but because he's a merciful God, right? He still gives them a chance. You still can escape if you prove yourself. So the people within this tower, maybe without even realizing it or knowing their own history, they're being punished. They're there for a reason. They cannot leave and they're trapped within this prison of a tower. Maybe Vi and Arlen discovered this truth, and maybe that's why they started the Great War with Jihad, where, guess what? They sided with the inhabitants of the tower, the ones that they potentially wanted to free from its grasp. We know the descendants of the ancients were on their side during the war, which is why when they lost, Jihad killed and cursed them. Maybe they sided with the people they wanted to free, but Jihad didn't want anyone to leave. This makes even more sense when you realize Arlen left the tower. What if Jihad made an exception? What if, for one moment, he allowed one person to leave, the person that he loved more than anyone in the world? She walked through that gate, through the 134th floor, leaving the tower with Bomb's body. The administrators could be seen as some kind of being, these angels that are there to protect the institution and carry out the will of their god. If you watch my last video, it's clear all the administrators seem to care about is the tower's will, aka the will of their god. But okay, Joe, these Adam and Eve references, what's going on? There's no hint at Adam and Eve and Tower of God or even an original sin. What are you talking about, Joe? To that I say, welcome Cha, a descendant of the first man. Cha is a descendant of the first man who explains to Bomb who the first men even were, the flower nations, the mechanical nation. He goes into the history of the tower that nobody should know about at this time because he's so old. And furthermore, what is one of the attacks that we've seen Cha utilize in the story? Genesis chapter 1, which is the chapter where the first men, Adam and Eve, were created. Let there be light and all that crap. Like, that's literally the start of the Bible.
But again, I am the devil from the Bible, so...
The first men were the first ones that created this original sin that's been passed down for tens of thousands of years. And the irregulars that enter? The saviors of the tower. Bomb being born on the 25th night, the same day that Jesus was born. Bomb being this person who's both from the outside and the inside, which is exactly who Jesus was as both God and man. Bomb is the savior, the one that's going to break people free from the shackles of Jihad and allow them to be freed of their sin. I sound like a pastor right now. Bomb being both angel and demon, being both regular and irregular, being born inside the tower but coming from the outside, being resurrected. That's Jesus' whole shtick. SIU specifically said that Rachel's name was taken from the Bible. This guy is reading the Bible. The 12 apostles being the 12 great families. Bomb potentially having one from each family like Vicente and Elaine and Kuhn and Laro and Yuri. Jihad's 3 eyes and the 3 lords. The Trinity, the 3 eyes of Jihad over a cross in Bomb's cave. In the Tower of God anime opening, Bomb looks almost like he's being crucified, holding the sins of the people of the tower on his back. That's Bomb's entire character development. I'm sorry, I just hit you with so much there, but it cannot be a coincidence that all of these religious references, specifically to Christianity, are present in Tower of God, and they don't serve any kind of purpose? That's not even mentioning the Tower of Babylon story in the Bible, where people are like, hey, let's build a tower to God. And they do, and God's like, no, and so everybody speaks different languages. It's a weird story. Hey guys, Future Joe here. I think we just found our original sin. Building a tower to God, and then God punishing you by locking you within that tower forever. There's just so much, and I'm sure you're gonna hit me with some in the comments now that I haven't even realized. But going even further, In chapter 1, Bom and Rachel don't walk into the tower, they fall down into the tower onto floor 1. I think the tower might be upside down. Imagine you hit the end. You reach the end of Tower of God. Bom and Kun and Rat, all the people who've survived this war. You've got Shibisu and Hatsun and Dorsey, whoever's still alive at this point. And they open that door to find out what's on floor 135, and instead, they see that sunset. They see the stars twinkling in the night sky. And they feel a breeze that isn't Shinsu. It's something unlike anything they've ever experienced. Freedom. And as their backs are silhouetted against the night sky, that's where Tower of God ends. We don't know what they do when they leave, but that's a whole new story that's about to begin. Bro, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. But what do you think? Is all of this just crazy talk and SIU just likes doing references and he hasn't thought about it all that much? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Huge shout out to Hannah from Towers and Gods, as you all know her, or the Jedi Exile over on Twitter, who I talked to about this theory a long time ago and it resurfaced in my mind when talking about the tower. I just think this upside down thing is so fascinating because SIU, he likes his plot twists, and I feel like he's gonna pull a plot twist at the very end. Dusting is the smartest guy in the tower, and he has no idea how to leave. Yet Arlen somehow left? That's the part that really seals this for me, where it's like, I don't know if it's true, but there's a lot of evidence that something like this could be true. Subscribe for more Tower of God videos, leave a like if you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.